Hi guys. Again, sorry, I look bad. I always look bad when I do videos, but I am going to do a shit people say about self-harm, because me myself, I get a lot of crap about my scars, and I would want you guys to know things to expect, especially since school's coming back, and I want you guys to be prepared if you have just recently started self-harming, and I want you to stop, but you'll have scars, and I don't want you guys to be affected the way I was about things that people will say about your self-harm scars, because it can hurt a lot. But the main thing that people will do if they see your self-harming or your scars is, what are those red lines? I don't know why people ask that. I really don't. It's a really stupid question. You can see what they are. They just want you to tell them. They want you to say, they want you to say, I cut myself or something, and you're not going to want to say that. You'll most likely say, oh, it was the cat, or you'll make up some sort of excuse. You'll say nothing. You'll pull your sleeve down or rearrange your bracelets or something, or pull your sleeve, your short sleeve down to cover it on your shoulder or something. You'll do something to hide it. But yeah, a lot of people say that. I don't know why. It's really stupid. But people will ask you what those red lines are, and don't feel hurt by that. I know I did, but it's not worth it. Another thing people will say is, how'd you get all those scars? Me, myself, when people point out my scars, mostly on my legs when I go swimming, I say, nothing, and they go, what do you mean nothing? And I say, nothing. Because honestly, I don't like to tell my story in person. I don't like to talk about it in person. The only person I've actually really talked about it in person with is my best friend and my boyfriend, because I get really uncomfortable about them sometimes, and I just kind of stare at them. And my boyfriend always tries to make me feel better about them and say that it's the past and it really doesn't matter anymore, because it's true. But yeah, people will ask you how you got all those scars, even though they most likely know. Another thing people will say is, why do you do that? Obviously I do it because I am upset and I hate the skin that I live in. I don't know why people ask this either. People ask really stupid questions when they see things like that. They'll ask why you do that to yourself, when it's pretty obvious why I do it to myself. But yeah, don't feel hurt when someone asks you that. A lot of times, sometimes it's because they care. I wouldn't tell everybody, don't tell everybody why, because there are people who actually care, and there's people who just want to know. There are people who just want to know the answers to these questions just so they can have the information about you. Don't give them that power to have this information about you, because in the end they'll just hurt you with the information. When people see your scars or cuts, they will probably say something like, but you have a good life. I hate when people say that. I ranted about this on Instagram the other day. You guys have probably seen it. I don't care how good of a life you have. I have a pretty dang good life, okay? But it's not the person's life that is tearing them down most of the time. Yes, some people do have a bad life, but I mean, there's people starving in Africa, and they are still happy. Most of them are still happy because they're happy with what they have, even though they have very little. It's not your life that's tearing you down most of the time. It is your mind, and you cannot help your mind very much. You can try your hardest to think positive every day, but when it gets 3 o'clock in the morning, when you are stuck awake because you can't sleep, because your thoughts are just killing you, and you don't know what else to do, and you just pull out the blade and put it against your skin, that's what's tearing you down. It's not your life. I have a pretty good life. I said that. I have a roof over my head. I have food to eat. I have loving parents. My parents may not be together, but they both care about me, and I see them both. And I get most of the things I want. I recently just got a new tablet because my other one broke. I have a pretty good life, but I was still upset. And it wasn't because of my life. It was because I stopped sleeping because I couldn't. I was scared. I was terrified to sleep because I had nightmares every single night. And I would just stay awake, and I would lay there after my mom went to bed, and I would cry. I would cry every night and just think about how useless I was and how much people didn't care, and I just felt like nobody cared about me. But I know people care. I do. I know that if I actually took my life away, that I would hurt so many people, and they'd probably end their lives too, because they'd feel like it was their fault that I ended my life. And I don't want people to feel that. I don't want to be the cause for someone else to hurt themselves, or I don't want to make people feel like it's their fault that something's wrong, because it's not. Usually it's my own fault. Usually, like, someone could say something hurtful to me and it wouldn't faze me, but then like 10 minutes later I'll get deep into thought in my head and I'll start crying, and they'll be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to say something that hurt you. And I'm like, no, it's not you. And they're like, yes it is, I just said this. And I'm like, no, that's really not it. I get deep into my thoughts and it just kills me. It has nothing to do with my life, okay? Most of the time it doesn't have anything to do with your life, so don't think that it has to do with your life. It really doesn't. Someone can be rich and have their parents be together and have a huge house and constantly get everything they want and have the best clothes in school and everything, and they could still be dead inside. You don't know them. But yeah, a lot of people will say that. A lot of people will be like, well, but you have a good life, okay? Don't let that hurt you, because you know that it's probably not your life that's hurting you, okay? Don't let it get to you, please. Another thing that people will say to you is, oh, what happened? Like, really? I don't get why people say these things. Really don't. If you can't figure out what happened, then you obviously don't deserve to know. And if you don't already know, if I haven't told you, then I probably don't want you to know. So I don't know why you'd ask anyway. Okay, so yeah, that's some stupid things people will say about your self-harm. And I'm gonna move on to something else. A lot of people will say that if you like flick a rubber band onto yourself a lot, like, that was just proof of point. If you do that on purpose, that's self-harm. It is hurting yourself. A lot of people will say that flicking a hair tie on your wrist or a rubber band doesn't count as self-harm. It does. You're hurting yourself on purpose, and people who think that's not self-harm, I don't know. It is, okay? Just deal with it. It is. And I'm sorry if you're one of those people that does it. Just know that you are it's still considered self-harm, and don't feel like you harming yourself is any less important because you do smaller things, because it is. Another thing that people, like, some people will think, oh, it's just scratches, that doesn't count, it's not self-harm. Yes, it is. You are physically deciding to hurt yourself by scratching yourself, and it can get pretty bad. A lot of people, if you have nails, you can scratch pretty deep into yourself. Me, on the other hand, I don't have nails. I bite my nails. It's a really bad habit. I need to stop. But I used to scratch my arms, and I would just end up with little red lines all up it. And I would have to wear long sleeves for a day until they went away. And a lot of people don't consider that self-harm, but it is, because you are taking your nails and you are digging into yourself until it hurts. And it's still self-harm, so don't think it's not. And it still counts, and I still want you to stop, because it's not good, and it hurts. It really does, and it don't like you feeling like you need to do that at all. I hate when people think like if it's not on your wrist that it doesn't count, because I have scars all down my thighs because I cut my thighs usually. I used to. And there are very sensitive areas on your thighs, and there's veins and everything, and it's just as like harmful as doing it on your wrist. And it's actually easier to hide, so most people won't do it on their wrist, because it's really hard to hide your wrist unless you're wearing long sleeves all the time or bracelets. which a lot of people have caught on to those things, so people have usually moved to like their shoulders or their thighs or their stomach because those things are easier to hide. I used to do it with my stomach a lot, and my thighs and my shoulders and even my ankles, because someone already saw them on my wrist and I didn't want anyone to ask about them anymore, so I moved where I did it. And it's still self-harm, okay? It is. People will think that punching yourself or pinching yourself until the point that you get a bruise isn't self-harm, but it is. You are still physically harming yourself. That is the definition of self-harm, is harming yourself. And if that's what you're doing, whether you're bruising yourself or burning yourself or cutting yourself or scratching yourself or hitting your head against the wall or whatever you do, it's still self-harm. Honestly, I like to believe that if you are doing drugs or drinking alcohol to get away from your thoughts, I think of that as self-harm too, because drugs will kill brain cells and in the end it will hurt you more. I like to think of that as self-harm, like taking excessive pills to make yourself fall asleep. I like to think of that as self-harm. And alcohol makes you, it's temporary happiness. So is drugs. You don't remember it. You don't remember how, like, your happiness and what happened. So there's really no point to it. And you're doing it to make yourself feel better. You're doing it to get away from the thoughts and everything, which is exactly why you would cut or take or burn or any of those things. I think of those as self-harm too, and I don't know why you would do those things. There's really no point in doing them. It's only going to help for a day, not even, and then when you come back from your high or being drunk, you're just going to feel even worse, because you are going to want to be happy again, and that's why people get addicted. And I want to say one thing that people don't get. Drugs help you. One of the main things that helps you is the first time you do it is you take a deep breath. And taking a deep breath actually stimulates a lot of things that will cause you to feel better. So if you're thinking about doing drugs to calm yourself or help you get rid of some thoughts, then just take some deep breaths. Don't actually do it. If you're gonna self-harm, just take some deep breaths. Don't actually do it. It's okay. Everything will be okay, I promise you. It just takes some time. Yes, there are many different methods of self-harm, and yes, they are all just as relevant, and I don't want you guys to think that just because you scratch yourself or give yourself bruises that it's not the same thing, that it's not as relevant, and that you shouldn't try and talk to somebody and you feel like there's nothing actually wrong because you're just punching yourself or hitting your head against the wall or scratching yourself. I want you guys to realize, I want it to hit you. You guys are actually in distress. You guys are actually self-harming. I know it's hard to actually think, wow, I just hurt myself. It didn't actually hit me until the next morning, the first time I did it. Okay guys, just remember, I'm always here to talk to you guys. I actually recently got a new Kik on my tablet for anybody who is following my account and wants to talk specifically about self-harm and wants recovery. It is the same as my Instagram name, stay.strong.guppies. If you don't know how to spell that, just check my Instagram. It's in my bio. I'm always here to talk to you guys if you guys need some advice or help or anything. And I will share my story with anybody who wants it. I love you guys. Stay strong.